afternoon. Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 32 of The Drop Set. I am your host, Darin Starr. Thanks for joining us here. If you're listening online via iTunes, Google Play, through the website. However, if you're watching on YouTube, hey, how y'all doing there? Let me give you a better angle here. You can see my lovely Christmas tree in the background. There you go. Hey. Or if you're on Instagram right now watching live, we're doing it live. Good to have you here. Thank you. So we've got a couple topics on store for today. Had some really good feedback from last week's podcast talking about drugs and bodybuilding. So clearly it is a topic that people want to hear more about. Just because I'm a jerk, it ain't going to be today. So it will be in the future. However, we will dig a little bit deeper into the topic. For today, we've got a couple things on tap. We'll get to those shortly. I just wanted to cover a little bit of the basics here. First of all, biggest disclosure is I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I love you guys, so I'm here anyway. So I'm doing this. I didn't announce that I was doing the live broadcast because I wasn't sure, and also because I know when I announce it, more people watch. And I figured I'll do it, but if fewer people watch today, that's okay with me. So I look like absolute just dog crap warmed over, but that's not too different from most days, actually. So I feel a little lousy. If the energy is a little low today, I apologize, but I'm doing what I can. I did want to do one today just because, it's Wednesday, which is when I normally do it. I don't want to fall out of the routine. I did have some stuff to talk about as well. So, I've been out of the gym. Today was, yesterday I went, but, it was lackluster. So I'm going to call that a day off. Today is a legit day off. I may take tomorrow off as well. It's yet to be determined. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely not feeling quite 100%. And then today I woke up and, boy, I mean, let's just say that I hope this podcast actually makes it live, the audio version of it. So if you're watching on YouTube and Instagram, I will point you in this direction as well. You can see here's my fancy setup, my desk here with my monitors. Notice that one of them is not working. And YouTube, you can see right here, this guy is not working. It's not because I turned it off, because that's the monitor that I had my porn on and I didn't want it showing when I was doing my broadcast. It's because that monitor doesn't work anymore. So I did a software update yesterday and lost a monitor in the process. I thought it might have been a USB to VGA adapter, so I went out and bought a new one. Nope, that's not the issue. So who knows what it is, but I'll figure it out. And then also, it took me 45 minutes to open Excel this morning, which is, as a coach, when I write plans, everything's in Excel. That's my bread and butter. So I had to actually reinstall some stuff. It didn't work, and I jumped through some hoops, etc. Finally got it working. And then the audio program that I use for recording and editing the podcast doesn't work either. So thank you, Microsoft, for that lovely update that you did not give me the option of skipping. Thank you for completely screwing up my day so far. So I'm using a different program to record the audio here. Good Lord, I hope it works. If not, this episode will get lost and the video will be the only thing that remains. So we'll see how it goes. So I'll spare you the other really boring details of my week, other than to say this. I'm going on a vacation soon, and I don't know where, because I did the math, and I haven't had a day off since March, and it's currently December 6th. So I need a day off, and I'm going to take one. So at some point, hopefully this month, I'm going to take a vacation, and I hope it's not just like, going and renting a cabin in the woods an hour away, especially not in December. That would be miserable. I want to go somewhere warm. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, we may miss a podcast for that week. I ain't going to do it remotely. If I'm gone, I'm gone. So if you need to get a hold of me, don't. Now, one little thing, if you can indulge my ego and my sense of pride here for 30 seconds. I have a marketing person that I work with, and she brought up, she's like, how many people actually listen to your podcast? And I told her, hey, Thea, how you doing? I told her, I'm like, I have no effing clue at all how many people listen to this. I know when I do a live broadcast, I get a handful of people watching. I get comments from people. I get Instagram messages. I get emails from people that are watching, but I don't know. So, and then I figured out, so the audio version of that, I use a service, a podcast hosting service to actually store the files. And They are nice enough to maintain statistics for me. So I did a look, and over the life of the podcast, this is episode 32, so the previous 31 episodes, I was able to find out how many times it has been listened to. Any guesses? 31 episodes out there so far. Any guesses as to how many times it has actually been downloaded and listened to? I will tell you, I was a little surprised. I thought it might be like, a couple hundred, something like that, because, I go on iTunes and I look at reviews and comments, and there aren't any. Like, nobody's left any feedback. So let me put out a plea here. If you listen to this podcast through iTunes, please, I'll get down on my knees and beg. If you can go give me a rating and a comment, leave a little feedback, I'd love it. But there's nothing right now, so I don't know. iTunes doesn't give me any statistics or anything like that. But the number from my hosting service, they came back and they told me that this podcast has been downloaded and listened to 13,000 times, which I got to tell you, it was a little scary, because I'm like, wait, that many people have listened to my stupid ass ramblings. I better step up my game a little bit. So I thought that was simultaneously cool and scary. So anyway, to everyone who has listened to this to date so far, thank you. You're the reason that I do it. Because I certainly don't do it for my own good. So 13,000, I was pretty floored by that. Considering, I am definitely in the media world, I'm definitely small potatoes. I have no illusions that, like, hey, I'm the shit, I'm big cheese. No, I ain't. But I feel like I've got some stuff to say, and apparently some people are out there to listen to it as well. So awesome, thank you. So let's dive in. I've got two topics to go over today, and I think they are both kind of interesting. One of them, if you know me, you know that my education background is actually in, trivia question, what is it? Well, two things. The first time I went to school, it was for music. That worked out really well. But when I went back about 10 years later, I went back for civil engineering. So I'm a big fan of math. I like number crunching, which is one of the reasons why all of my programs are written in spreadsheets. I like the spreadsheet to double check my math for me on macronutrients and all that stuff. So I wrote up a spreadsheet here, and for the Instagrammers out there, I will show you this thing. Yeah, I don't think you can really see that so much, but nonetheless, I've done it here. So I've crunched the numbers, and what we're going to talk about is protein affordability. So I went to the grocery store earlier and was just running through, the sources that I tend to favor, and things that I use or have used in the past. And I'm just thinking, like, if somebody's trying to do this on a budget, what are the best bang for your buck items, and what are the things that are definitely going to help break the bank? So that's the first topic I want to go over here. So disclosure, what I'm talking about here are complete protein sources. So yes, you can get trace proteins from, beans, from rice, from cheese, from other dairy products, etc. But I'm relying exclusively on complete proteins and things that are primarily protein. So I'm not considering cheese to be a protein source. Yes, it is a complete protein, but if you're using it as a protein source, you're going to be eating a lot of cheese. Let's just say that. So protein being the macronutrient that that our lives tend to be focused around, for better or worse. I thought it would be helpful to do a little bit of a cost breakdown analysis on some protein sources. So the stuff that I looked at here: chicken breast, ground turkey, turkey patties, eggs, egg whites, beef, Greek yogurt, protein powders, protein bars. Things that I didn't look at: fish, anything that comes from the sea. Why? Because I hate that crap. There's another variable that goes into it, and having some experience working with those things is certainly helpful. And I used to be like a fish twice a day kind of guy. I did that for a little while, and then I realized, wow, because I'm doing this, I hate my life a whole lot more than I probably should. So I stopped doing it. It was disgusting. I just did not want to do it. And I'm like, if this is what bodybuilding is all about, then you know what? I'm just going to be a garbage man or something instead. I don't want to do this. So a lot of people have this misconception also that when you're dieting, you have to have fish. It's a requirement. I worked with somebody recently who came to me when she was about 8 weeks out, and she was like, things aren't happening. I'm working with somebody, but I just don't feel like they're listening to me. I'm not getting the kind of feedback that I want. So we did a quick short prep, and in those 8 weeks we dropped about 10 or 11 pounds, which is great. We did it with no fish, and she was eating fish 4 times a day leading up to that, and so her quality of life went way up. And I tell you what, the thought of this comes from 2 different places. The reasoning behind why fish is so awesome as bodybuilders. So, well, 3 places. First of all, if you do something like salmon is a really great, healthy food. So, therefore, it's automatically considered bodybuilding friendly. It's a protein source that has really great healthy fats in it as well, so it just kind of naturally gets that street cred with bodybuilders, like, okay, this is great. The other thing is other fish just tends to be really, really lean. There aren't a lot of wasted calories in there. Even chicken breast, if you get a big 8-ounce portion of it, you've got a handful of calories in there from fat. Is that a problem? No. But if you're looking for, you're talking to bodybuilders who are almost exclusively a super, super hardcore audience, and if they can get an extra 0.5% of something, they're going to. So they look at the fat content of something like tilapia compared to chicken breast, and then in their deranged minds, they say, that's worth it. I am losing an extra... Thea on Instagram says she loves salmon, hint, hint. Yeah, go for it. You can eat all, I will send you all my salmon because I ain't eating it. So have at it. But yeah, we can make that work. Don't you worry. But if you're trying to shave like an extra gram or 2 of fat from a protein source, sure. Is that going to be the thing that separates you, that keeps you from getting to 6% body fat or not? No, it ain't. I'm sorry. And the other thing, and I think this is where a lot of people demonstrate just how susceptible they are to ideas. There was this thing that started, and I don't know where it came from, but this idea that eating more fish gives you thinner skin. And honestly, whoever started that is, first of all, a marketing genius if you're trying to sell more fish to bodybuilders, and also is either knowingly lying to people or just is incredibly stupid, because the thought comes because, fish are like semi-transparent. So if you eat more of it, then clearly you're going to get more transparent as well. I'm not sure what kind of demented brain that actually makes sense to, but I've heard it from a lot of different people, and they aren't joking, like they actually believe it. So yeah, I don't know. I wish it was a new one, but I've heard it many times. So anyway, all that to be said, I'm not covering fish in this cost breakdown because it's gross as hell, and I don't want to support that. But also, a level of familiarity is important, because one of the things with protein sources that you cook specifically is understanding the change in mass from a raw version to a cooked version. So you can buy a pound of chicken, a pound of turkey, a pound of beef, whatever. You cook it, you aren't getting a pound cooked out of it. So there's a percentage that you lose, and that's just basically in moisture and fat, water and fat cooking out of it. So if you have something that's really fatty, for example, and then you cook it, you drain the fat out, which clearly is what we want to do, because you don't want that stuff sitting around, especially in something you're going to refrigerate, because it just congeals into this gross, toothpastey, mayonnaise-y looking blob of just nastiness that you want nothing to do with. So I hope nobody's eating out there, because the thought of toothpaste and mayonnaise, mix that together, yeah, tasty. But you've got to know the percentage weight. So I've done this before. I've done this breakdown before where you know how much you're cooking raw, then you cook it, and then you weigh it afterwards. You see what the change is, and then you come up with a percentage, and you're like, okay, great. Chicken breast cooks down to about 85% of its raw weight, and 85% for lean proteins is about right. Typically, you're going to get that much just in moisture loss as you cook it down. So the fattier something gets, the lower that percentage gets. So something like 85-15 beef, you cook that, you take a pound of that, you're going to cook it down to about 70% of its weight. So you're only going to get about 11 ounces cooked out of a pound of 85-15 beef, something like that. So the spreadsheet that I put together here, I should share this actually, because you can add additional sources to it. You can adjust that percentage. So if you if you want to throw in some fish like tilapia or something, and it cooks down to 90% of its raw weight, then you can plug in that variable. You see how many ounces you get per pound out of it cooked, and then you can plug in a unit price. So like I went to the store today and got all these prices. So this is all relevant today for Knoxville, Tennessee. And, you know, some things are more expensive than others. And some of these prices, they seem a little bit high to me. And I know I've seen lower prices, but I didn't want to capture like sale prices for the purpose of this. So like the chicken breast I get is $1.99 a pound pretty much all the time. So I buy things that are about 5 pounds of it. It's about $10. And you're thinking like, $10. Okay, well, he says, so double that for California. Yeah, probably. So, your mileage may vary. So, chicken breast here, $2 a pound. So I shell out $10 for 5 pounds of it. I usually get 2 or 3 of those in a trip to the store. One of them goes in the freezer. One probably goes into the slow cooker pretty much right when I get home. So, the cost breakdown on that, let's just run through the numbers here. So per pound, we're getting about 85% cooked out of that because it's chicken breast. It's relatively lean. We don't lose a lot of mass in that. So we're getting close to 14 ounces out of that pound cooked, a full pound being 16 ounces. So the cost per ounce, pretty low, 15 cents per ounce. And then the next column over is, okay, well, how many grams of protein do we get per ounce? And with chicken, it's right about 7 on average. So how many servings do we need? And then I broke this down for men and women. So, a typical protein serving size for men is going to be about 50 grams per meal. I'm really ballparking it here just so I can throw in 2 numbers here. For women, if we put that at about 25 grams per meal, great. That's going to be about 150 grams for women, 300 for men. Clearly, there's so much variation possible in that, but it's a starting point at least. So it gives us some numbers that we can chew on here. So servings for a 50 gram protein chunk, it's going to be just a little over 7 servings, which at 15 cents per pound gets us right about $1.05 for 50 grams of protein. And spoiler alert, that's the cheapest. So if you can get your chicken breast for $2 a pound, that is, I would say, actually by a good bit, the cheapest protein source you're going to find. Now for women, you're only looking at about half that, so you're looking at right about 52 cents per serving. So suddenly, if you can find ways to tolerate chicken and make it more, prepare it with a little bit more variety, and prepare it in different ways, suddenly, bodybuilding ain't so expensive. Now clearly variety in protein sources helps. It's not absolutely essential in most cases, however. So if you wanted to rely on 3 or 4 chicken meals a day, and I can hear some of you choking back your own vomit right now thinking about that, just because it is a protein source that so many of us rely on consistently. And it's like, the thought of doing more of that. Thea on Instagram asks, is that the regular kind or organic grain-fed? Oh, that's funny. That is the regular kind. So yeah, or organic grass-fed chicken or grain-fed chicken, yeah, that's going to be a little bit more expensive. But my thought there is one of picking my battles. So it says on there that there's no hormones and no antibiotics. Do I believe that? Not necessarily, but I appreciate that they're at least trying. So and it's like no added hormones, no added antibiotics. So clearly there's some stuff in there and it's just considered not added, but it's all good maybe. You've got to go with what you can budget for and what's realistic. Like I do tend to when I can, and sometimes here, like when it comes to beef, like I always go for grass-fed beef, but sometimes around here it can be really hard to find. There's definitely going to be a little bit of variability just based on what's available in a specific area. So looking at some other things here. So we look at ground turkey next. So what I had available at the store today, they had 98.2, 93.7, and 85.15 as far as the leanness gradients there. So the leaner stuff was clocking at about $4.50 a pound. The 93.7 was $3.50. That 85.15 was $2.99 per pound. So do the math, and what you come out to is, for guys, that 50 gram protein serving for the lean stuff, a little over $3, about $3.10 per serving to get 50 grams. The 93.7, you're looking at about $2.60. $2.60 per serving, and then the 85.15 you're down to about two and a quarter, about $2.30 per serving there. Women, half that across the board, so about $1.60 for the really lean stuff. The 93.7 is going to run you about $1.50, and then about $1.15 for the 85. About $1.20 for the 85.15. And then there are also turkey patty options. So this is Thea also says bison tastes way better. It does, yes. And here, I'll get to the beef later, but like they have 96.4 beef at the store, $9 a pound. Ooh, yeah. That stings a little bit. $9 a pound versus $2 for chicken. Yeah. I mean, I like variety too, but it's not something I would make a staple at that price. Grass-fed beef is nasty. I don't know. I have had much better luck with grass-fed beef. It's harder to find around here. I can't find it consistently at the same stores. Everybody's like, oh my God, this just tastes so much better than regular beef. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe my palate just sucks. It's kind of like, pretty much every wine tastes the same to me. There are some people who are like, they can identify a wine based on how it tastes. I'm like, I can identify that as being red based on what it looks like, but I couldn't tell you any more beyond that. I just have like zero palate. So like, I don't know, if somebody tells me that a burger that I'm eating is grass-fed beef, I'll be like, oh yeah, I can tell. It's probably just the way it's cooked. I have no clue. I've got a very stupid mouth. Like it can't really tell the difference of anything. So, but I did look at turkey patties as well. So, this is like, you can get 93.7 turkey patties and they're $10 for 6. So again, you're thinking like, ooh, okay, kind of expensive. Well, it comes out, they're about 20 cents, 30 cents more than the ground turkey at that same leanness. So, about $3 for a serving, for guys, about $1.50 for women. And then they had 85.15, and the numbers there are very comparable, actually a little bit cheaper than the ground turkey. So, $2.34, $1.17, for men and women per. So the 85.15 turkey patties. Now, other things to look at here. Eggs. So what I picked up today, and the only eggs that I would really recommend considering to people, you can I don't know, if you go to the grocery store and you look at the options there, you're going to find so many varieties of eggs, like the kind that you can buy by the pallet for super cheap. They're like 3 cents each, all the way up to the ones that are raised by Happy Chickens that are like Fabergé eggs, and they're like $45 each or something like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the variety of eggs. So I was at the grocery store today and I was looking at stuff. I'm like my eyes were kind of glazing over. I'm like, well, I got to pick something here. And what I would recommend for eggs is get an egg that is fortified with omega-3s. So we're looking at omega-3 eggs specifically. And even if I narrowed it down to that, we had a whole bunch of options. Like there's the white ones, there's the brown ones, there's the cage-free, there's organic, there's grain milk. Jesus Christ. So, I just picked some that looked decent. They were brown eggs. I typically don't like because they're they're much bigger pain in the ass to crack without getting little chips of the shell in wherever you're cracking it into. Maybe it's just me. In addition to having a crappy palate, I have really poor mechanical skills in the kitchen. So, I have difficulty cracking eggs. I have difficulty chopping anything with a knife that's not my fingers. It can be very dangerous in there. So, that is why I also always like to spend as little time doing food prep as possible, just because I can reduce my chance of getting seriously injured in the kitchen. Thea says omega eggs are usually $6 to $7 a dozen. Wow. Okay, so what I found today, omega-3 eggs, and these were actually grain fed out here in East Tennessee, $3.50 for a dozen and a half. $3.50 for 18. So I gotcha. Clearly, California living is expensive. That's what we got. That's the lesson from the story here. So it comes out to 19 cents per egg, 6 grams of protein per egg, which means you're looking, again, if you want to build an entire meal around that, you're going to be looking at like 8 eggs, which if you're using the yolks as well, means you're going to be getting about, 30-ish grams of fat in there as well. So, but you can do that for $1.60. So cheaper than any of the turkey options. For women, you're about 80 cents there, 4 eggs. So that's an option, or you can combine that with egg whites. So here, egg whites, and this is something where, I've gone through stretches where we're using a lot of egg whites. I go through, several cups a day. It can be hard to find the containers. I think just because I was like eating Knoxville out of the egg white stock. I don't know. But what I found today, $4.29 for one of the big cartons, which is 4 cups. And, a cup is close to the serving size that we're looking at for women. It's about 27 grams of protein. We're targeting 25, close enough. So it's about $1, about $1 per. So that's not bad at all. About $2 for men for an appropriate serving size there. Greek yogurt, one of those things where it's like, yeah, gross. I don't want to do that. Doesn't fit my taste at all. Unlike the fish, however, I didn't have to go out of my way to find this. It was right next to where the eggs were. So I did the math while I was there. Yada, yada, yada. Worked the numbers, about $2.50 for men, about $1.25 for women. So on the lower side of things. So still comparing that to chicken, $1 for men, about 50 cents for women. So that's still kind of the gold standard of which you want to measure things against. The beef options, we had 96.4, 93.7, 85.15. They kind of run the gamut, right around $3.25 to $4 per serving for men, $1.60 to $2 for women. So not bad. You're definitely on pretty much all beef products, except for the very, very, very lean stuff. You're going to lose a lot more of that initial pound just cooking off in moisture and fat. So 85.15 is typically going to get cooked down to about 70% of its raw weight. So your pound, you're down to about 11 ounces there. So for men, you're looking at close to an 8-ounce serving to get your 50 grams. A pound of it, you think I can get 2 servings out of that? You can get a little more than 1. You can get a little less than 1.5 servings out of that, actually. So something to consider. And then the big thing also for me is protein shakes. So clearly there's so much variability just based on brands, price, etc. So I just went with Isopure because it's what I use and I get a good price on it, which makes it more competitive on this list. I get it through Amazon, their subscribe and save program. I know I've talked about that at length on here before. Well, not at length. I've talked about it frequently before because it's how I get all of my supplements: protein powder, glutamine, BCAAs, pre-workout, L-carnitine, all that stuff. I just have Amazon send me whatever I need monthly, and I save 15% on all of it. Does this sound enough like an Amazon commercial yet? Okay, great. I mean, it's a good deal. So my giant ass tub of Isopure, last month I got it for $73.47, and it's got 104 scoops in there. So it's what is it? Did I do that math right? Hold on. I think so. Yeah. I did. Okay. I was having a moment of doubt. So each scoop is 25 grams of protein, 0 carbs, 0 fat. So it is pure protein, hence the name. Get it? Isopure. Yeah. So for men, you're looking at 2 scoops. For women, you're looking at 1. Women, you're looking at 71 cents, and men about $1.40. So that is aside from chicken, that is by far the next least expensive option. So, and a lot of people think, and this just is because it's got a big price tag on it. You're like, wow, $2 a pound for chicken, or wow, 70 something bucks for a big thing of protein. Yeah, but it's all about price per unit and how much of it you're going to use. So 70 cents, $1.40, it's a big one. So the big thing to take home from this is that bodybuilding can be done on a budget. It's just in order, the more budget conscious you want to be, the more you're going to sacrifice variety, and you're going to stick with just the same few cheap options. But it's doable. It's not unreasonable. I know that you can probably beat some of these prices if you go to Costco or Sam's Club. Thea asked, Isopure the brand? Yes, Isopure the brand, and I think that's the name of the product as well. Like, it's just Isopure, and that's it. So I can post a link for what I use. Dean asks, where did I buy? Amazon? Yes, I did. You missed that part. I think you joined right as I was going on my Amazon sales pitch. All that stuff came from Amazon, yes. And Thea says it's one of the more expensive protein powders. Yes. So yeah, if you buy it locally, like if I run out and I don't plan well enough, because Amazon, they send me their stuff on the 20th of the month. So if I run out and I don't have some, I'm going to have to run to Vitamin Shop to pick up a little 2-pounder. I'm going to pay through the ass for that 2-pounder compared to what I will get for the, that $73 tub that I get, that's 7.5 pounds. And you can get that, regardless of where you are, the price on that's the same because it's through Amazon. So, the tax you may pay on it is a little bit different, but it is one of the more expensive brands just because they don't have, in most of their products, they don't have that 5-pound tub that most people have. And typically you can get those priced around $50, $55, something like that. They've got their 7.5. And so the price tag looks bigger. You're like, oh man, that's $75. And I think actually the list price on Amazon is closer to $88, $89. And it's because, again, you get that 15% discount going through Amazon. That is huge, 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 huge. So I would highly recommend people check that out, unless you're really just trying to keep your local supplement shop in business. And that can certainly be a valid reason to continue there. I mean, if it's a locally owned business, then sure, I support that absolutely. But at the same time, if I can get a better deal, significantly better deal through Amazon, and they save me the hassle of having to actually drive into town to get it, because I am clearly a hermit and I don't like leaving the house except to go to the gym. The supplement shop is not on my way to or from the gym or the grocery store, so clearly I'm not going to go unless there's an act of God that requires me to go there. So so I would definitely recommend going that route. But you look at that bigger price tag just because it's a bigger container. It's not 5 pounds, it's 7.5 pounds. So yeah, it's going to look more expensive, but the unit price is it really makes it worth it. More questions. What is the discount code? There is no discount code. It's just through their subscribe and save program. So with a lot of items, they have items on there that are subscribe and save eligible. And when you go to buy one of those, you can click to buy at the regular price, or you can subscribe and save, and then they'll throw 2 different discount prices at you, one at 5%, one at 15%. And the 5% is just, if they're sending it to you every month, great, you save 5% automatically. You save 15% if they're shipping you 5 or more items on auto ship every month. And so, like, I get paper towels, dog treats sent that way. I mean, I won't say everything, but enough stuff. Like, we've got electronic toothbrushes, so new toothbrush heads for the electronic toothbrushes, like every 3 months. So we end up buying on, got distracted. My phone was talking to me. Most of the things that we buy on the regular, I just set up through Amazon subscriptions and call it good. So you save 15% if you're getting more than 5 things. Does it require Amazon Prime for that? I'm not sure. I think probably, just because otherwise you are going to be paying for shipping. So yeah. So, okay, so that covers the protein discussion here. How are we doing on time? We're about 32 minutes. That's good. Okay, so I want to have a quick discussion also about off-season. This was going to be the video topic for what I wanted to talk about in video this week, but I ran into some technical difficulties. So we're going to do that next week. It'll happen. That video will be up there. And I'm just going to try and, put together a video that talks about the importance of off season in about 8 or 10 minutes basically. So I want to give a little preview for that here. The idea is the premise of this video is talking about and creating a series of videos that will talk about bodybuilding mistakes. So, and one of the big mistakes is just that people don't do an off season. They consider bodybuilding to just be an endless cut basically, and a lot of that is because they don't really throw everything that they have into that cut, so they never get as lean as they want to. And so they're just always trying to get a little bit leaner. And eventually, it just, your body's like, no, it's giving you the double middle finger. It's like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. We're done playing this game. I can't take it anymore. And even the most hardcore person is going to hit a brick wall, that their body will, and they're just not going to, it's not going to continue cooperating. So it's just due to, metabolic overload, adrenal fatigue, all sorts of things, cortisol levels. You can only cut for so long, and that's why people don't take 30 weeks to get ready for shows. First of all, it usually isn't necessary. It's totally unappealing, but also your body isn't going to survive a 30-week cut and still be productive. So an off-season phase, and you can call it what you want: off-season, growth phase, maintenance, improvement season. If you want to be all catchy and like super positive all the time, I don't care. They're all the same damn thing. So whatever you want to call it, it's important to do one. Now, why is it important? Well, first of all, your calories are going to be higher. You're going to be doing less cardio, so you're going to be spending less energy on things unrelated to lifting, so you can throw more of what you've got into it. You're going to have more fuel in the tank, and your resources are going to be spent in fewer other places, so you can concentrate more on it. And that's when you have the chance to really grow, improve, fix issues with symmetry. If you've got imbalances, like one leg's a little bigger than the other, that kind of thing, that's the time to focus on it. Bring in some extra detail, add size. That's the time to do it. That's what the off season is for. It doesn't just mean that you lose definition and you get fat. You should actually have an active goal that you're looking towards, which is, I need to improve X, Y, and Z. Have a list and just make sure that you're checking off all the boxes on that list as far as everything that you should be doing towards that goal each week. And the other thing, as I mentioned before, your body needs a break. You can't cut all the time, so you've got to throw some things in between those cuts. Now, you can work in a couple of extended cutting phases per year, sure, if you actually have a growth phase in between. So let me throw a different example for you here. You go through a show, you do it, show day comes and goes, you're like, woohoo, all right, party time, show's done, I'm not cutting anymore, screw you guys, I'm going home. And then you just like eat like a normal person, maybe you lift a couple times a week, no more cardio, you're living the life, having some drinks, etc. And then you look in the mirror one day and you're like, holy hell, I am fat as hell, I gotta do something about this. I know, I'm gonna do another show and I'm gonna cut. All right, cool. You did not have an off season. You cut, and then you basically hit the pause button. You did nothing. You did nothing to help your metabolism rebound. You did nothing to improve your overall physique. You did nothing to improve your development, fix any issues. You're just going to cut again. Best case scenario, you'll get up on stage looking exactly as you did before. That scenario is unlikely because you didn't take the time to repair your metabolism, or at least let it recover a little bit. You didn't try to, keep your metabolism active by continuing to lift or do some cardio. So that next time you go to cut, you're going to realize like, man, these pounds aren't coming off as easy as they did the last time. And it's because you didn't do a proper off season. Now, what is the way to do an off season? So, I mean, clearly when you're cutting, it's all about energy deficit. So you're eating a little bit less, you're doing a little bit more cardio to make that deficit bigger, so that then ideally we're trying to preserve muscle, drop fat. So the opposite is true in the off season. You're doing less cardio. I would advocate not doing no cardio. You got to do some. You don't need to do a ton, but some just to maintain cardiovascular health. And you're going to eat more, but not infinity macros. That's one of the biggest mistakes for people who do an off season. One of the biggest mistakes is that they just let it get totally out of control. They're like, all right, it's donuts and pizza 4 days a week. Yeah, buddy. And you can sustain that for about a month. And then you're like, holy hell, I'm fat. I got to stop this. And then, back into the same thing. So keeping things a little bit more controlled in the off season means you'll be able to do it longer. That's one of the things that I advocate working on with my clients is having an off season that has a little bit of flexibility built in. And certainly the macros are going to be higher, so you're going to be able to work in a little bit of this and that. You can have a drink here and there, that's fine. You still don't want to go binge drinking or anything like that. Let's be clear, you're still a bodybuilder, so we got to keep things together. But the proper way to do an off season, realistically, is your macros are going to be higher, not through the roof or anything like that. What we're trying to do is kind of manage your rebound coming out of a cut. So things have to be somewhat controlled, but you do have a little bit of leeway on precision. Like when you're trying to cut, if your carbs are set at 130 grams a day, great. As your coach, I want to see them as close to 130 as you can. Like 125 to 135 is about the acceptable range. Just because changes that I might want to make might not be much greater than that. And so if you're already like way outside that wiggle room in your margin of error, then changes that I make, it's not going to be easy to see the effect of those. So during the off season, however, like if your carbs are targeted at 250 grams, you've got some days where you're at 225, some days where you're at 275, whatever. I mean, that's fine. I mean, realistically, if you can be super precise and a robot about those numbers and hit them exactly in the off season, that is great for you. Kudos. You might be a difficult person to live with just based on what I'm picking up about your personality, but I appreciate the dedication that requires. It's not necessary though. This is the phase where you can eyeball something occasionally. You can, maybe you don't actually weigh out a meal, but you kind of eyeball and you're like, oh, that's about right. Occasionally. I wouldn't make a habit of doing that every time. Or you can have an untracked meal. You can have a cheat meal on the regular. You can work in some macronutrient options that are a little bit more friendly. Work in some high sugar stuff post-workout. That's fine. But the trick is to keep it reasonable and don't lie to yourself. And if you find yourself like trying to justify what you're putting in your mouth and say, oh, bro, I'm just bulking, it's cool, you've crossed the line already. So your actions shouldn't require any justification. That's the big thing. So, but it is a time to let your routine develop a little bit more slack. What doesn't change in the off season? Typically, I'm not going to advocate big changes in how you train during the off season. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, my reps go way down in the off season, and then I shoot them back up when I'm dieting." No, I'm not a big fan of that. If anything, what we want is, in the off season, we want to focus on the things that we want to focus on. So I might adjust the training emphasis a little bit. Like we're going to target certain muscle groups a little bit more, and maybe a little bit more directly with some detail work to really get the development that we want in certain places. But as far as like big shifts in how you train from the top down, no, I'm not a big fan of that. Now, what do you expect? In the off season, there's a couple things to expect. First of all, if you don't have a long-term goal in mind that's very clear to you, your off season is going to suck and you aren't going to be able to stick with it. So off season is hard because muscle growth is the focus here, and no matter how well you do it, muscle growth is slow, and it's slower than fat loss. So when you're dieting and you're doing it well and things are cooking, you can see some fat loss at pretty regular intervals, and then you start to see that detail come in. It's much easier to keep track of how you're progressing just visually. In the off season, not so much, because muscle growth is slower, and also one of the things that inherently happens here is the level of detail that you see decreases as you grow. It shouldn't necessarily decrease tremendously, but it is going to decrease. That's just part of it. And so those small changes in muscle growth are going to be even harder still to pick up because there's more fat on your body. You can't see it all as much. So you'll be able to feel it a little bit. You may be able to notice some performance improvements as well, but it's trickier. It's a lot harder. So if you don't have that long-term goal, like wherever you want to be, 1, 2, 5 years down the road, and you're not constantly thinking about that, it's going to be really, really tricky to maintain your focus. And that's one of those reasons, but both of those, the fact that it's slow and the fact that, it's really hard to see what's happening, that's probably the two biggest reasons why people start an off-season phase and then just kind of peter out. They just drop off completely with it, or they go back into cutting because it's hard. It's a patience challenge. It really is. So, but you've got to accept the cyclical nature of bodybuilding for sure. So I would strongly encourage that. You're just like you can't cut forever, you can't bulk forever, you can't be in a growth phase forever either. Your metabolism and your adrenal system can take a hit when you're cutting. There are certainly some negative things that can happen from prolonged growth periods as well. Basically, your ability to build muscle, it is cyclical as well. Like your body will put it on, and then eventually it's going to be like, I'm done. And then you're like, all right, cool. Let me stop force feeding all the time because. If you're doing that, it's also good just periodically for your head to stop putting on additional body fat, because no matter how well you bulk, you are going to put on some. It doesn't have to be 10 pounds in a month, but if you're going up more than a few pounds a month, there's a chance that there's more of that being fat than would really be ideal. So let's see. Oh, Thea asks, is getting heavier on lifts a good sign of muscle growth? It is, yeah. Consistently going heavier would be, because I've had those days where you go into the gym and you're like, all right, so this is what I've done this lift before. I'm going to hit it, and then for whatever reason it just feels light. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I end up PRing by a big amount on that day. I'm like, wow, all right, I am awesome. And then I go back in the next day. I'm like, all right, so this is what I did last time, and I can't even do that. I'm like, what the hell? You just have those days where you just kind of, where beast mode just engages and everything's just a little bit easier. So that I think is a sign of a great mindset more than anything else. Not necessarily a sign of muscle growth from one session to the next. But if you consistently have those things where things are continuously getting heavier, it's a good sign. Your strength is going up, which has as much to do with your brain and your neural firing patterns as anything else, and just learning the skill of the particular lift and getting more refined with the execution of it. But clearly, muscle growth is going to be a factor in that as well. Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that is a really big question is, how do I know when I should bulk, when I should cut? So this is kind of related. If you're a competitor, it's a lot easier because you pick your show, which has to be done intelligently, because you may need time to grow and build before doing a show, or you may be, maybe your development's good and you're ready to go right into a cut immediately. So okay, that's fine. But one of the big things that I do with people that I start working with is, before I start working with them, is I want to do an evaluation, say, let me look at you, let me see what your routine looks like currently, and let's figure out what a good roadmap should be, how much development we need to work on beforehand, if any, what areas we want to focus on, how much time you might need before a cut. That's one of those things where, if there's anything that I do that I feel like is really hard to teach somebody, it would be that. So oftentimes people will ask, what's your strategy with macronutrients? I'm like, I can tell you, but I mean, it's going to take a while because there's a lot of things that go into it. I could. It's not like it's super proprietary knowledge. Just it's going to take some time to explain. I'm busy, and that's pretty much all there is to it. With this and assessing somebody's physique and trying to figure out the planning and how to work on going from one phase to the next, that's much more of an experience-based thing, and it's very difficult for me to teach that. So that's one of the things where anybody who's listening to this, whether live, recorded, on video, whatever, if you just want some input on your physique and where you should, what you should be focusing on, how you should be phasing your stuff, if you're looking at a show, if you're looking to do a photo shoot, you want to get married, blah, 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 and look great in your wedding dress, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a competitive goal, but you can email me. I'm going to ask for some pics and to get a summary on what you're doing right now, and I'll give you an assessment. So it's just something that I like to offer for people. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. So yes, off season is super important, but it is, and I fall into the trap of calling it off season all the time, which kind of sets the wrong idea. In that, yeah, it's off season, so I'm not going to lift a whole bunch. I'm not going to do a bunch of cardio. I'm not going to track my diet. I mean, I call it that just because it's habit, but it's probably a bad name for it. So as cheesy as it is, and as much as I kind of roll my eyes whenever I hear it, improvement season is probably a better term for it, because that is what we're focusing on. You're not necessarily focusing on growth. It depends on what your goals are. If you're a bikini competitor and you want to stay in bikini and you feel like you're about topped off on development, then great. You don't need to focus on growth necessarily, but you want to focus on improvement, sharpening up those details, keeping tight, keeping your metabolism up, keeping your weight in a good healthy range while you eat more and more and more. So, all right. So I hope that helps a little bit. So we covered the the economics of protein and the importance of the improvement season. There we go. I said it. Y'all happy now? So that's all I got. So I am going to, I've got some more client stuff to do, and then boy, I can't wait to take a nap and rest and get rid of some of this crud that I'm dealing with right now. So my voice is feeling a little shot right now. Yeah, and I've got band practice tonight as well. I've got like 10 Christmas songs I have to learn before 7 o'clock tonight. It's currently almost 2. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but we're going to see. I think there's going to be a lot of faking it involved. So we've got to. Hey, my dad just joined the podcast. Everybody say hi to my dad, Starr 46. Hey, Dad, how you doing? So yeah. Anyway, we've got a gig that we've got to play on Saturday. It's a private party. Half of it's Christmas music. So Christmas music has never been my jam. It's not stuff that I know. So I'm gonna have to learn a lot of that. Just Dad is laughing. It's always funny when your parents use emojis. I'm still not used to it. My wife's mom texts a lot, and she's like the emoji queen now. It's hilarious. I don't know. It's always a little I don't want to say unsettling, but it's just funny. I don't know. Thanks, Dad. I'm glad you made it. It is the tail end. I was just about to wrap it up and say goodbye to everybody, but then you hopped in and I freaked out. So. Anyway, that's what I got. So I'm going to wrap this up officially right now. Thank you all for listening. And if you missed at the very beginning, I did have that very cool statistic. So thank you, everybody, for downloading this podcast 13,000 times. Yeah, that's right. So I appreciate that very much. Yeah, so people are listening. It's a good feeling. So I will wrap this up. With any luck, I can get my computer to cooperate, and I can actually get the audio of this posted online. Maybe. I don't know. I might have to just take this thing out back and shoot it and go buy a new one. We'll see how it goes. I hope it doesn't come to that, because that would be expensive. So anyway, thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day, and catch me back here next week, same time-ish, and we'll solve some more of the world's problems. In the meantime, everybody just have a great day.